we're going to talk about packaging and pricing strategies. How many people in this room consider themselves an MSP? Pretty much everybody. How many of you are owners in your businesses? The majority. Good. Okay. Well, normally my introduction's 45 minutes, but since we only have 45 minutes, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. The managed service business has been my life for 22 years. I've built 2 managed service providers, both that you can drive to from here. One just up Route 95, about 25 minutes from here. I owned and operated that one for 12 years. Today it was acquired and it runs under the name of Mindshift Technologies. It was acquired by Best Buy and today it's owned by Ricoh. The second one is just over the bridge in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. That one I didn't work in. I was only an investor in it over the past 6 years. And the first one, we scaled to over 7,000 end users under management. And the second one is it's over 300,000 a month of recurring revenue, both at probably the top 5% of profit margins in the industry. I ran the first one at over 30% net profit. The current one is over 20% and climbing. So a lot of it has to do with this. I spent the last 10 years as the president of True Methods. We do training and we have a software product called My IT Process to help IT providers, managed service providers, build sales and profitability. So I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but I know a little bit about this, and so I hope to share that with you. Here's where the average MSP is today. When it comes to MRR, monthly recurring revenue growth, inconsistent. How many people here wish that they could sell more monthly recurring revenue than they do currently? Yeah, it's the number one thing. I ask people, hey, what's your number one goal? And that is it for everybody in the room. And how many are able to do it? At least add one customer a month on average worth $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And almost no one raises their hand. And so my joke is, do you know any other business where everyone can agree on their top goal, but almost no one can do it? Right? Pricing, all-in seat price. A little higher than 100 now. But still, I see a lot of people, if you take all your recurring revenue, divide it by all the seats you have under management, that average is 100, 120, 130. And when we look at some of the costing things and the pricing, you're going to see what a problem that creates for people. So they're not generating enough service revenue per employee. The mean, if you look at service leadership, and they probably collect the most data, the mean of profit margins after true owner salary in our industry is about 8%. The top 25% average 18%. The bottom 25% at or below break even. We've all done a lot of work to redo our models the past decade, haven't we? I think that stinks, that it hasn't turned into higher profit margins, only for about the top 15, 20%, right? Not for the average providers. So top providers, world-class providers, they're adding recurring revenue. They're adding it now. I said 120 to 160. I'm saying right now it's in the 150 to 175 range is where top providers are. The most recent MSP that I had here, 165 average per seat, does not include backup. They're generating about 50% more service revenue per employee. They're getting into that true 20 to 30% net profit. And of course, that's a thriving company. You're creating opportunities for everybody in your business. Your support offering, if you're selling recurring revenue, is at the center of that, okay? It determines your ability to sell new customers. It impacts the quality of service you can deliver and your profitability and scalability as you go. If you just showed me your packaging and pricing, I could tell you a lot about your company. And I see a lot of them. Some people, when you meet a new person, they show you a picture of your kids. When someone meets me, they show me their packaging and pricing, right? That's what I get to see. I can tell you what your sales model looks like. I could probably tell you your margins within 3 or 4%. And most of all, I can tell you what keeps you up at night just by looking at what you sell, how you sell it, how you package it, how you price it. So let's start at the highest level and we'll work down. It should define, I call it your superpower. It should define your competitive advantage in the marketplace. What's special about your company? What is your unique process to deliver value? How do you impact not just your customers' technology, but their business? How do you institutionalize your knowledge and experience? Because that's what everybody tells me. Why do people do business with you? What do you think the most common answer is when I ask people, hey, why do your customers do business with you? Why do people do business with you? Anybody? They trust you, right. Does anybody here not trusted by their customers? Right? I always hear that one, trusted advisor. Do you have any advisors you don't trust? Right? You all have knowledge and experience, right? So how do you institutionalize that knowledge? And what determines your value? I like to think about it this way. Consider the difference between a supermarket and a bakery. A supermarket has all the same items on the shelves, all the same ingredients. You may like one over the other, but you're not going to pay $1.35 for a 65-cent can of beans, right? So those models by nature are commodities. They're high volume business, very low margins, a few percent profit. Compare that to a bakery. They also have all the same ingredients in their cupboard, but they combine them into their unique recipe. So my wife, there's some seats around. If you want to come in, I think there's some seats you can find. So my wife has me drive past 2 or 3 other bakeries to go to the bakery where she wants that birthday cake. And when I get there, I'm not asking them whether it costs $40 or $45. So what you have to say, are you really an MSP or are you a reseller? Okay? Do you just have a list of items? You may be bundling them, but is that why people are buying? Or what's your superpower? What is your recipe? How can you explain that you combine those ingredients to make a chocolate cake that someone else would drive past 2 or 3 other MSPs to get to yours, and they don't care whether you're charging them $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month? That's where you have to get to. What I've seen over the past 3 or 4 years with a term I call big software. There's 4 or 5 big software companies now, right? A lot of equity money. Products are getting better. They're going to solve all the security issues, the backup issues. Your customers are more secure. They're more backed up. But if the MSP margins aren't rising, what's really happening? Are we becoming VARs again? Reselling software solutions instead of hardware? Are we a free sales force for big software? Right? I know this thing, and I have some software. Software is good right now. Software companies are doing well. The investors are doing well, and our customers are better off. But how we package it and price it determines whether we're going to be better off. Is it going to help our business model? That's our responsibility, right? To take those things and turn it into something that has an impact not just on our customers, but on our business. So here's what I see a lot of a typical managed services. You got some tool set, monitoring, antivirus, patch management, backup. You know, today you're spending a little bit more, you're buying up your security stack, right? And you're offering support. Give some advice too. But for the most part, if you think about your team, other than professional services, right? Because you're still doing professional services, but when you think about what you're doing for your monthly fee, a lot of it fits into there, doesn't it? So does that really define your superpower? So I'm suggesting that, oh, there we go, man. How about that, huh? Yeah, I wasn't going to make it quite that quick. Let's get back to where we started. Okay, there we go. Reset. I'm going to suggest that where a typical offering ends is where top MSP's offering needs to begin. It needs to be more than just support and your stack. You need to be able to have some type of compliance. You need to be able to see where customers are lining up against not just your standards, which are important, but now some industry standards that I'll show you. Where are they in and out? What is their risk? If we can't compare them to some standard, it's really hard to advise them and get to that next piece, which is a true virtual CIO relationship, a strategic business relationship that I will tell you very few customers have. Everyone says they're a trusted advisor, but I'm going to give you a little definition to really test that concept, and you can test it based on some of the results and the questions that I'm going to answer. But really having those things over there really are the recipe. Having standards, how you look at technology, comparing people, the way that you give advice, right, and show people the impact of it, that's the part that is your knowledge and experience. So having roles and process aimed to that and packaging it in so that every customer gets the same end result, that's what separates average providers today who struggle in sale and struggle to command the right price and struggle in margins with those top 20%. So let's run through it. Support. Listen, quality support's important, but all MSPs say they're good. Can you differentiate yourself based on support? Yes or no? Yes, how? Can you pick up a phone better? Is that, like, how would you differentiate?
Yeah, 5-bell model that we created, the technology that we developed for routing, for answering, for KPIs.
I got you. So do you think that's really what you want to compete on? That you can pick up a phone and you can, like, does a customer, is their business going to be that much different whether you get to them in 10 minutes or you get to them in 15 minutes for most customers? How many people think that that's going to be what differentiates you? How many people feel pretty good about their process for how they route calls? Right? I found this. One thing MSPs share in common, they're really good people who care about their customers, and they take pretty good care of the end users, even if it's really expensive to them. Right? I'm going to suggest what has more of an impact on your customers is not how quickly you respond, but how many issues are generated, right? How many tickets per month per endpoint based on your approach? If they're dealing with twice as many issues based on your approach because everything's going into support, to me, that costs them more money than whether you get to them and you have some SLA that gets to them a little quicker, right? Because ultimately, they don't care about the time. They care about the expectations. They want to feel like the time you responded. So I'm going to suggest, and what I tell my team is, listen, our customers don't stay because of you. They leave if we shit the bed. Right? If we don't give them support, that's a reason for them to leave. But they expect that any vendor they deal with is able to do this. It's our original business that we've been in, right? So I'm pushing back for a purpose, right? I hope you see. On it, because it's an important point that I want everybody to hear. Now, I'm not trying to, tell you your baby's ugly or your process is not good. I'm just saying it's hard to command the right price by going in and trying to create separation here. Would you guys agree that I'm on the right track with this? Okay. Centralized services, really important here, right? Your RMM is probably at the center of it, your automation, your security, your cloud features. The problem here is we all have access. You can go down to the Solutions Pavilion with a credit card today, and 10 minutes later you can walk out an MSP and have the exact same tools that everybody in this room has. They've made it affordable. The first time, I was one of Kaseya's first customers when they came out. I had to invest almost $200,000, right? We had a competitive advantage for about 6 months till they figured out that no MSPs other than us had $185,000, right? And they figured out the pricing real quick, and everybody in the marketplace had it 6 months later, right? Today, the channel has figured out, remember, we're their sales team. They figured out how to get their software into our hands cost effectively. Can the 10-minute MSP deliver the same results to a customer that those of you who have been in business for 10 years have? Can they help a customer the same way you can? You think they can? I'm going to say no. Haven't we all learned something in building our teams over 10 years? Right? Don't we have some knowledge and experience that we've taken that the 10-minute MSP wouldn't have? I'm getting some blank stares today. I do a lot of presentations. Am I on the right track with this? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. All right, I'm going to push through it. Hopefully I get you engaged a little bit more in this. I'm going to blame it on whatever the keynote was, the lead-in. I'm going to blame it on that, on this guy, because I know it couldn't be me, right? Okay, this is a piece that we really stress. Technology alignment, the other word I look for is compliance, right? Having a library of standards that you are continually comparing your customers against, right? Really important. If we don't know how customers line up with our ideal idea of technology, really hard to know how to give them advice. So there's all of these standards, right? There's all these general technology standards, but now we have customers, small businesses that are or will be subject to a bunch of industry standards. GDPR could be added. There's a few others in the financial area. Even if they're not subject to it, it's kind of good to know every customer and how they line up against the security controls, isn't it? Right? Because they have some risk that many times they don't know unless we tell them. Do you know what all customers think when they have any MSP? That they're completely secure. Right? Are they completely secure? No. The Department of Defense has just told us they're not completely secure. Right? So certainly they're not. And then setting them up in a way, hey, is the production firewall enterprise grade, however you define that? Why are you asking that? How do you find the questions? Make it real simple and yes and no questions. Is it in or is it out of our standards? Why do we want to make everything always yes or no with standards? Yet anyone can answer the question. We want to be able to get the same information about every account the same way every time, right? Otherwise, it becomes documentation. Documentation is different than standards. And they're both important. Documentation just tells you how things are. It doesn't tell you how things should be. And isn't that really what our job is with customers? To tell them, hey, here's how it should be. Here's where you are. Here's what it means to you in your particular business. And this is where you get to, virtual CIO. What I would tell you is the maturity level of this process and the results of this relationship is the best indication of the maturity, the profitability, and the growth of top MSPs today. They're really good at this. Doing impact assessments, building a strategic roadmap, leveraging that alignment information to say, hey, you're out of alignment on some of these things, but based on your business, things we know about your particular business, here's what the risk or opportunity is. Here's the recommendations that we're making to your business. Think of it this way. As an IT provider, you're looked at by your customers in one of two ways. You're either SG&A, you're an expense item. Just like office cleaning and electric and phone and internet, they have you, right? How do you know if they look at you as an expense item? Number one, they care a lot whether you charge them. If your customers care a lot whether you charge them $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month, they're seeing you on that side. If they're not investing in recommendations, if you're not generating at least 30 cents on the dollar for every dollar of recurring revenue and non-recurring services, your customers may like you, but they're not taking your advice. So if you have $100,000 a month of recurring revenue, you should be generating, right, based on recommendations you're making, another $30,000 a month of non-recurring services, right? Changes, upgrades, the recommendations that those customers are having. Now think about it if they look at it as a functional area. They have ops, sales, HR, finance, and they should look at IT the same way. Those are the people that are represented, even at a small business, that make decisions about the strategy of their company. Do they view you as one of those, like they view their accountant? Right? Every one of our customers has accounting. They do accounting. And all the people in here, you have some accounting in-house. But we all have a relationship with an accounting company, don't we? And so do all. Why? Because the accounting company gives you strategy. The accounting company keeps up with changing tax laws. Your accounting company deals with 50 or 80 companies, just, other companies besides you. They get a different look. So you value, and I'm going to guess, you're not pushing back whether your accountant is charging you $12,000 or $10,000, are you? Right? We're not treating them, and when we have an issue, they're one of the first people that we call. Are you being treated that way? Right? Sometimes I have people say, well, Gary, I know you told me to meet with the real decision makers, the people that make the budgets at all these customers every quarter, but they don't want to meet with me. And I say, well, don't feel bad. They don't meet with the people that water the plants either. Although they also say they're proactive. They water the plants before they die. Right? Because they don't see you in that way. So let me ask you some questions. In your accounts, who are you dealing with? Or somebody, the person responsible for that relationship. Are they meeting with the decision makers, the people that make the strategy and the budget within those businesses at every account? If you're not a VCIO. You're not a trusted advisor. Second, how much do you know about those companies besides what they do for a business? Do you know what their strategic plan looks like? Do you know what their sales plan looks like? Do you know if they're a high margin business, a low margin business? Are they growing? Are they a big player in a small market, a small player in a big market? What's their competitive advantage? Why do people do business with them? What's their biggest challenge? What's their greatest opportunities? What is their top initiatives for the next quarter? If you don't know the answer, or someone in your company doesn't know the answer to that and every other question, you're not a VCIO, you're what I call a VCO, a virtual Captain Obvious. Your servers are old, you should replace them. Your licensing expired, you should renew it. Your Exchange server is old, let's move you to Office 365. Your backup is not working, we should replace it. Thank you, Captain Obvious. That's advice that anyone in this room could give. That's not a recipe. That's not a superpower, right? You understand what I'm saying here? By definition, if you can get yourself to build roles and process, right, that I'm talking about, that are aimed at that relationship, right? And you know what it costs to deliver it, because we're going to show pricing in a minute. And that is what you're looking for with every customer, and that's the relationship. What do you think would happen to your business? What if customers didn't care whether you charged them $4,000 or $3,000? What if they took more of your advice? What would happen? Well, one, your non-recurring revenue would go up, and usually when that happens, your profit margins. But when they're investing that way and they see technology as investment, what happens to their ticket levels, their noise levels? Do they go up or down? Yeah, they go down. They go way down. 1,400 tickets a month. Do you think that's a lot of tickets or a few tickets? It depends, right? Okay, so when I walked out the door of my first MSP, we were doing 1,400 tickets a month, and we managed 7,000 users. 7,000. That's 0.2 tickets per month per end user. 0.2. Most people that I meet when they do the math and they really count all their tickets and alerts, everything that they're doing that they're not billing for, they're more closer to 1 ticket a month per endpoint. Because our people were taking our advice and they were inside of our standards all the time. If we had been 1 ticket a month per endpoint, would I have gotten to 7,000 endpoints? No. No way. You know why? We would have drowned in tickets way before that. That's why very few people have 7,000 and users under management. The ticket levels and the noise goes up, and they can't command the right price. When noise is high, seat price goes down, recurring revenue is lower. That's not a good recipe. When you start to move that needle in the opposite direction, amazing things can happen. They can happen pretty quickly, right? We were talking about it, my friends here from Premier. They are one of the 3 finalists for MSP of the year of the 501. And that's one of the things that you worked hard at, right? Was moving that relationship and moving those big needles in your business. And it starts by how you see yourself and how your customers see you, right? So we talk about business impact. Hey, so something is out of alignment, right? The firewall firmware or operating system is older than 12 months. So is that an issue? Well, if they're a flower shop, it might be marginal. If they're a doctor's office, I would say it would be, or a bank, I'd say that would be pretty vulnerable. So once we analyze what is in or out, then the next thing we want to do, right, is go to our customers, build a roadmap, and just say to them, hey, we look at this many things over time. Of those, based on the last quarter, this many of them are out of alignment. Of those, there's 5 I want to talk to you about today. Based on what I know about your business and your business plan, that I think you need to make a decision on, okay? Hey, here's one. You have this server, and it is, it's 5 years old based on its configuration, the way we back it up. If it goes down, it'll be down for at least 2 business days. Is that okay? The answer might be yes. Based on the way we use that server, we can live with that. Awesome. The answer might be, no, that's our line of business app. It can't be down for more than 4 hours. Awesome. You have 2 choices. You can change your technology or change your expectations. If we don't have that conversation and the server goes down, whose fault is it? It's our fault. Everything's our fault, right? Can you have that conversation after the server goes down? No. You want to make a customer mad? Wait till their line of business server goes down and then tell them it's their fault, right? That doesn't go over too well. So what you want to do with every customer is get them to see their business in this way. Hey, here's the big things we're working on. Some of your applications, your backup. You have some communication things coming up with some offices that you're opening. There's some core infrastructure stuff. There's some disaster recovery things, right, that we need to talk about. Let's talk about what those things are. Let's get them planned out. Guess what happens when you do that and you get them invested? You can start to look out the next quarter and already know within 10% what's going to be coming in from a professional services standpoint. That's super powerful. The second thing is, when you're scheduling your professional services projects, because they're not based on what broke this week, which many of them are, and they all have to get done in the next 2 weeks, we can schedule these out 4, 8, 12, or more weeks in advance. All of a sudden, your non-recurring revenue starts to look and act and feel in its consistency and in its margins, just like recurring revenue. Because here's a dirty little secret of managed services. You look at a top provider, you look at the total profit dollars they had in a month or a quarter, then go look at how much non-recurring services and hardware margin they have. You might be surprised. That revenue, getting more of it and doing it scheduled profitably and having the time to do it right is really important today to an MSP. Equally as important as driving that recurring revenue. Would you agree? Yeah. By the way, it also makes the biggest impact. You go out to your customer base, start doing some alignment, start having these conversations. Usually there's low-hanging fruit, man. You go out and you find $50, $100, $150,000 next quarter of project work that you wouldn't have had, man, that makes an immediate short-term impact on your business in terms of being able to fund your model and put more resources in to those same kind of things around, alignment and building that VCIO process. It'll fund your business. Okay? So I'm saying really look and see where you are and what you're selling and how valuable it is. And if you're struggling with being able to close the right amount of business, you're usually not losing to competitors. Most of the time, the reason that MSPs don't sell You go out and talk to customers, they tell you everything sounds great. They just don't buy. They end up not doing anything, right? They stay where they are. And the reason is because they didn't see the value or the impact on their business to go through the risk or the time to make a change. So, focus on that end result. What unique value will you offer? How will you impact not just their technology, but you better be asking questions of how you're going to impact their ability to run a better business, because that's what a VCIO does. That's what an IT functional area does. That's what every small business needs. They need that function in their business. Look at what you're offering. How much of it is the stack and how much of it is your recipe? Having your knowledge and experience and roles and process that's tangible to be able to explain logically in 10 minutes to a customer why your customers invest a little more and why they run their businesses better and differently than they do with the other choices. If you can do that, you can make the difference in price between what you charge and what others charge, the reason they do business with you. And luckily, this is true, because I've been on probably 1,500 sales calls in my first MSP. And in every single one of them, two things was always true. Number one, when I met them, they told me they were fine. Two, after I asked some questions and they realized they might not be as fine as they thought, to achieve that new definition of fine, we always had to charge them more. Now in the marketplace, we're only 20 or 30% more. Back in the beginning, sometimes the gap was much wider. So define your edges. Be clear on what's included and what is not included in your offering. Don't make it fuzzy with a lot of what ifs. You can call us as much as you want, but if it's a how-to question, if it's this, if it's that, then it's billable. Either include it or don't include it, and make sure you're charging enough for it. Limit your choices and options. I see people, they got bronze, silver, gold, pewter, tin, right? With or without virus, with or without backup, or as we say here in Philadelphia, with or without whiz. And I ask them, which is the right one? Which is the offering that they're paying you enough and you have the right things in it where you can actually impact their businesses? They say, well, this one. Well, why do you have all the rest? Most common answer. Well, because that's what people will buy. People want choices. Okay, your sales aren't that great right now. Your theory's not working out. Now, I'm not telling you to only have one offering. At my most recent MSP, we basically have one offering, but you can have it in any color you want, as long as it's black. We're looking for people that want us to tell them how to leverage technology, how to make a difference in their business. We're not looking for companies to tell us how we should support them. Because if they knew that, they wouldn't be talking to us. They would already know. I had one customer, I don't have time for a lot of stories because our time, but I'll tell you one quick one. Not too far from here in King of Prussia, there was a company, they made the hamburgers for Burger King, right? You go in there and get a Burger King hamburger every day in their lunch place. And they had someone there who did some IT, he was responsible for what we work with, and he was always pushing back on every advice we give him. And finally one day I said to him, Ed, what if I came in here and started telling you better ways how to make a burger? What would you think? It would offend you, right? I'm like, yeah, you're offending me. You know about burgers, I know about this. Why are you telling me how to make my burgers? Right? If you want us to be responsible for the end result, let us have everything that we need. Let us charge enough. Let us have all the tools and resources. Let me build the roles that are going to do it. Put me in a position to be able to deliver it for you. Customers understand it because they understand their own business model and how they drive value. Okay, you want to talk about pricing for a minute? All right, some pricing guidelines. One, keep it simple. Don't share your psychosis. Okay? I know pricing is hard. You should be able to go into a customer, ask them a couple questions, and then be able to say to them, you're going to be between 3,000 and 3,500 ballpark. If you have to pull out a spreadsheet and ask them more questions, or God forbid, if you have to do a network evaluation to price a customer, I'm saying bridge out, turn back. You need to know what your cost per seat is, and you need to know what your average price should be to make margins. And over time, if you're doing alignment, you know that you're going to be able to control kind of where they are on average in or out of your standards and what that should produce. There is no way to go in and price a customer based on looking at them. I've been doing this for 22 years, okay? We're not that good at it. Is everybody with me on this? Okay, so keep it simple. Use all-in seat price as your guide. I'm not saying you got to charge people by seat, okay? You can charge them by seat, by gig. You can have a couple things in your, hopefully not by device, but you can have a couple questions you ask them by server. But after you determine that price, divide it by the number of seats or users to determine what the seat price is for that deal, and also for all of your customers, your average, because that's our unit of measure that we're going to calculate our cost. And the difference between your average seat price and your average seat cost determines your margins in the business. Really important point, right? Really important point. And then project the model, right? What if I had 25 customers at this price like this? What if I had 50 customers? How would my business look? And I can tell you one thing for sure, your price is not too high. And there's two people you shouldn't ask. Your customers or your employees. I can already tell you what they're going to say, okay? You need to understand your cost, and then you need to understand your value. How to pack value into every dollar that you have. So real quick, I have a whole presentation just on this. We call this micro-peakonomics, but I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of it. Go through, like they're the delivery areas that my companies have bundled into their monthly fee. Yours might be a little different, but go into each of them and calculate your average cost per seat. For example, let me give you one, a VCIO. Don't base it on how many accounts they manage today. How many accounts should your VCIO, once they're at capacity, be able to manage? Hopefully it's 35 to 45 accounts. So let's say they can manage 40 accounts. Multiply that by the average number of seats per account, and that tells you how many seats one VCIO can manage. If you divide that by, on average, what you pay somebody, right, per month, that gives you your average cost per seat, all in, for VCIO. You do the same thing for support, technology alignment. Centralized services, there's two pieces to it. You got to do the labor piece, then you have to do the tools piece. So regardless of how you pay for a tool, you may pay for it. If you include backup, you may pay for it per gig, but you better average it to find out on average what it is per seat so you know what your average cost per seat is. So you need to go through tool by tool, determine that average, and know what your average cost per seat is for tools and then all the labor. So in this case, we're at $45 a seat. Pretty common. I don't think anybody in here, for the most part, will be too far below if they're capturing all their costs. How many people here feel like they have a really accurate calculation for their cost per seat today? Yeah. Do you understand why that's a problem? That would be like, and this is where I get a little bit of I start to rant a little bit, so forgive me. That would be like if you were selling someone a firewall for $4,000. And I said to you, well, how much did the firewall cost you? And you said, I don't know. I don't track that. Well, how did you know what to sell it for? That's what I thought they would pay. That's what my competitors charge. Would you think that was silly? Guess what I think when you're selling a monthly fee and you don't know accurately what your seat costs are, right? If your seat costs are $45 and you want to be at 70% gross margin, which should be the minimum you should target, okay, your average seat price has to be $150 a seat. If you're at 125, you're down to 64% gross margin. If you're at 100, you're at 55% gross margin. You did better in block time than 55% gross margin, didn't you? Okay? Yeah, we worked too hard not to get to 70% gross margin. So now what you do is you say, well, is my offering worth $150? If it's not, you better go back to each of those areas and figure out, how do I pack more value into every dollar of costs? Because this is what happens. Look at the difference. Two companies, right, that manage 1,000 seats. One commands that $150 price. They're sending out bills for $50,000 more a month, $600,000 a year. For a company that size that manages 1,000 seats, that's probably 6, 7, maybe even 8% of their bottom line. That's the difference between average and getting towards that top quartile. Really that simple. So, average MSPs, they're spending too much time and energy to get mediocre results. They create a longer road to success. If you focus on your value proposition, having roles and process that build that strategic relationship that you can show as value, if you can command a little higher price and drive down some of those noise levels, right, you can quickly and dramatically impact the results in your business. Everything else about the businesses that I built were pretty ordinary. We use the same tools. Our people are good. Yours probably are too. The only reason why we've been able to get these results is because we figured out this process. We packed more value. We changed the conversation with our customers, and we changed the conversations with prospects. Are you with me? Okay. I have something. If you hand me your card, I have something on packaging and pricing because I couldn't review everything today. That I'll send you. If you give me your card, I'll send it out when I get back to the office. You'll have it waiting for you, and you can have it in writing. I go a little bit more into some of the costing and how you do some of the costing. Was this helpful? Awesome. Okay, thank you.